Hello, good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. What is today? Tuesday? Tuesday, as I'm recording this, the Tuesday after Christmas. I'm tired. Ladies and germs, tired, tired, tired. But I didn't want to not stream. I enjoy the streaming. But man, coming up with something to do today, just a little bit of a struggle. I feel like I've still got some of that holiday hangover, even though yesterday, Boxing Day, for those who celebrate that, wasn't particularly busy. Really didn't do very much. Still, I just found myself today just kind of a little bit of a sleepwalk, in a bit of a daze, but nothing can shake me out of a daze like talking to you, fine folks. So I'm here, and hopefully you are here, and hopefully you bring some things to talk about. I did pull up my RPG roundup Reddit because we multi Reddit because we didn't do one of those pre Christmas. So we have that. Oh, I guess I'll bring up a couple of things. Hold on a minute. Let me bring up my itch. All right. Got a couple of things here. We go to my stuff. Where's my stuff? My library. Hold on a minute. Let me see. Can I do itch? How do I get there? Hold on a memento. Let me switch this just to me. Whoops. Oh, let me get myself sorted here. This is what happens when I'm not. All right, let me get this. Let me just pull myself up here so I can get to the pages I want to get to. Got a couple of things I thought I could share. And now we can get on to other things. Broughton says, whoa, got off a plane at 2:30 a.m. last night, man. I don't envy you that, but good on you for getting to where you need to get to for the holiday, assuming that's why you're traveled. And let's see, let me get this other link. Got it. Okay, there we go. I can move back now. Okay. Oh, this looks terrible. Let me resize my thing to kind of get it in a better spot. So one of the things I have done. Let me move over here. I guess maybe first is I created this Dungeon Helper 23 or Dungeon 23 Helper. I think I've mentioned it before. I've done a couple of little videos and shorts on it. If you're doing the hashtag Dungeon 23 challenge, I created this helper document you can use. I've been updating it. The last one I actually put out on Christmas Day adds support for basically these offshoot challenges. So if you haven't been following it, hashtag Dungeon 23 was a challenge created by, I believe his name is Sean McCoy, but apologies if I've got that wrong. The creator of Mothership, I believe, and the idea was that you work on a mega dungeon over the entire year of 2023, one room a day, and then basically each month would constitute a level, so you'd end up with a 365 rooms split up across 12 levels. Sounds great, and it really has caught fire. I think Questing Beast I just saw put out a video on it, so you know that it's catching fire. The problem I saw right away, not the problem, but one of the things I've noticed is I think originally it was put out to be something very much not a lot of effort or something you kind of do in your spare moments. You're walking around, you're on the train, you're in between your job things, you're at lunch, and you could just write down a simple little note about a room, maybe sketch out a drawing, and that's it. And I think it was the first original idea was basically kind of like a writing prompt, something you could just do to inspire you, and maybe you end up with a mega dungeon at the end of it. Hey, Frederick, how are you? Okay, so it sounds great, but a lot of people were really so this thing took off, and a lot of people were really kind of getting into it, planning it out, thinking about what they're going to do for this Dungeon 23. Oh, hashtag Dungeon 23. But along the way, it went from here's something we're just kind of doing, it's fun, ha ha ha, and if it just inspires us to write something every day, then you do it. Frederick, I'm just doing a little Dungeon 23, and then this is actually like wide open. Like I said, mystery stream. You're welcome to drop comments in the chat of what we should discuss. I just thought since I have a couple things about this that I would share it. Uh, so the idea kind of took off, but it went from the original emphasis, which was kind of on doing something very light, very sort of low work, low effort, just work on something on a day and get it done kind of thing over a year, to people, I think, really getting into no, I'm going to create a mega dungeon and I'm going to really do something that's going to be sort of a finished thing. So seeing that and also seeing that this is a long challenge, I started thinking about, I'm like, my goodness, this is a whole year. Someone's going to do a dungeon over a year. Oh my gosh. So I created the helper to kind of give some more structure because the original one's just one room a day, go. And I think for someone who's just using it as kind of a writing prompt, that's great. Yeah, one room, go. Some folks are going to be able to just stay completely focused and do that, and it's going to come out on the other end with something amazing. And I think a lot of people are going to go through that and get up all twisted in knots and come out with just amount of stuff, stuff that they may not ever be able to use, whatever. So I created this helper that to basically give some extra structure for those who want it, for those who don't want it, don't need it. That was great. And I've been updating it, not a lot of updates, small things, because I saw, oh, now there's hashtag Hex 23 for doing it. Essentially taking that same concept, but now you're doing it on creating a hex map for a hex crawl. Hashtag city 23, where instead of doing it for a dungeon, you're doing it for a city. And I think there's even other ones besides. I saw like hashtag world building 23. I think I've seen hashtag something else 23. There's exactly, there's a bunch of these coming out. So I put this out there and it was great, and the response has been great, and I think people have found it helpful. Some people anyway, and that's great. And of course, you don't have to use it if you don't find it helpful, but it's free, so you can just grab it and see. But the other thing I thought about, and this just actually came up today. I was on Mastodon, which I'm trying to get kind of settled in there. I haven't just totally given up on Twitter, but I'm kind of trying to ease into these other platforms. I'm on Mastodon, and there's some good right now. I think it's at least the community seems to set up that a lot of the signal to noise ratio is rather high. There's a lot of signal, very little noise so far, and maybe that has to do with I just don't follow a bunch of people yet, and all this stuff. Right now, it's kind of in that I almost feel like that golden period a lot of times with not necessarily a new platform, but a platform that's kind of gets adopted. That era right after it gets adopted, when I think the people that I want to hear from and everyone, those voices, like the sort of I don't want to say important, but important to me voices, maybe the voices I want to hear are coming through loud and clear, and there's not a lot of just junk out there. So I'm in that moment for me in Mastodon right now. It's like bam, all the stuff I want to hear is there, boom, and not a lot of just crud that I just gotta want to kill off my timeline. And someone pointed out that for high functioning folks who are very focused and everything, they're going to be putting out this amazing stuff, but it's going to leave a lot of people behind, and it's going to make people put a lot of pressure on people to do things they may not be able to do. They mentioned kind of how this has happened with sort of zine quests and these other kind of challenges where you get some people put out like these professional looking zines, and what does it do? It sort of makes everybody just feel awful if they can't perform up to that level. They all sign on, all puts this pressure on to go through it. All these things which aren't necessarily good for people that arise out of these, because you're going to get some people that are already. I mean, I've seen posts already. Hey, I'm already a month in. Like, geez, already a month in, or I'm ahead of schedule. I've already got my first month, and I'm just thinking like, whoa, craziness. So with that in mind, I created a game jam on itch called Finish It 23. And Finish It 23 is all about, instead of taking something that isn't saying something that might be new idea and trying to work on it, it's taking something you already might be working on and finish it. This is the idea. I don't have it super fleshed out. I'm hoping to kind of add some more stuff to it. You can go to itch.io//jam/ finish it 23. And if you feel like joining it, I have it starting at January 1st and ending December 31st. You're welcome to share stuff or not. I thought it might be fun, and I thought for this, for those of us who may not, because I don't think I'm going to do Dungeon 23, at least not like a year-long thing. I just don't think it's in the cards. I got too much stuff. I got a bunch of stuff that I desperately need to finish. That I have sitting around. That it's not useful to me to start up something else, even though it's fun and the excitement will be there at least for the first couple months. I'm curious what the Dungeon 23 hashtag Dungeon 23 is going to be like in April, March. I think when people are starting to fall by the wayside, fall behind, the real drudgery kicks in. So I may finish it. So that seems like something I might be interested in. There's no pressure. There's nothing to do. It's just join. I thought that might be a nice option for folks. Hey, work on something you've already got, and then let's celebrate. Let's celebrate finishing something we already have, or at least working on something. Because I understand the other thing could be that you have ongoing campaigns. You have games you're running. And it's not about there's no finishing. Your home campaign, or at least for me anyways, it's until it ends and the campaign world is dead. There's never going to be a finishing, but there's always going to be something I could add to it. I could add another faction. I could come up with another bad guy. I could come up with another NPC, another plot hook, another something. So I'm going to try to add some stuff, but that's the idea behind that. And I just put it out there this morning, actually. So it's brand spanking new. So I thought I would just mention it here. And, you'll probably see a video for me. I'll probably do some kind of dedicated video just to intro it for folks. You may see it, may see it posted around. That's what that is. Some stuff going on in the chat here. The K5K says, dungeon, 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 rally the troops. Yeah, exactly. Brian Smith says, I feel like there needs to be a Dungeon Fragments 23 where you can all combine our projects that get half completed. Yes. And that's kind of what not to toot my horn on my helper, but that's kind of what I try to do is I end up splitting each month basically into sort of a dungeon. That could be a dungeon. You take these things, you put it together, and it's kind of like a dungeon. And then a mega dungeon is basically just taking multiples of these dungeons that all have their own themes and everything and slapping them together. But you could easily just go through and do 1 month, or take 1 month and spread it out over multiple months. Instead of doing one a day, do one every couple of days, something like that. But I think that the Dungeon 23 thing is I can see it just has captured people's attentions. It seems very much a thing of the moment, and all the stuff. But I think in March or April, gonna be a lot of folks kind of there. We'll see who is that marathon, right? Marathon, not it's a classic marathon, not a sprint. We'll see who's still running with it. And for me, is I would just rather that people finish things because then you can use them. You go halfway through Dungeon 23, end up with a bunch of rooms that you maybe fit together, maybe don't, but don't really have a place. Maybe you can shoehorn them into other things you've got or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, you might look at it and go, boy, if I'd used those 60 days worth of days to finish these other things, I would actually have some stuff that I could use, as opposed to now I've got a shoebox full of rooms and things that don't really fit into anything that I need. May not even match up together with each other. K5K says many people do pressure themselves too much. The beauty of D23 for them is that it's so low pressure. A room a day, I think of 10 a day without a reason, easy. I mean, I think that's what everybody thinks. Not to say, not to say that that's not easy for you. I think at the beginning, I think that's everybody, right? Oh, I mean, I think that's part of what's caught fire. Easy, come up with a name and just a little description. Maybe I'll just draw it. But it's going to be when you get to that, 60 days, if it's still easy or not, or if you don't find yourself saying empty room, empty room, empty room, empty room. I mean, there are, and not to say there are certainly ways to help if and when you do hit that kind of writer's block, designer's block. You can use generators, you could use all kinds of tricks. But I think what also happens with these types of things is that people get disheartened. They miss a couple of days. I think there is that thing where you look at somebody who's just doing awesomely and you're like, oh my gosh, whatever I'm doing is not as good as that. So then my thing is worthless, kind of thing. Which I almost wish that they would have, I think, and here's the double, not Jeopardy, the double problem with Dungeon 23 is it's both a drawing thing and a writing thing. And so you can end up on either side, ending up in a situation in which comparing yourself to other people can cause you undue grief and undue, I guess, self harm in a way, kind of mental anguish, because some people are going to write very well and draw very well. Some people will draw very well, but not write very well. And if you're always looking at your own stuff and thinking your writing is inferior to this other person's writing, and then your drawing is inferior to some other person's drawing, you can get kind of discouraged from two different directions, which I think just can make it kind of doubly difficult for folks. But I'm super excited to see what people are gonna do with it. Well, I just want people to, like I said, my thing was I would love if people just get things done. If you can manage to do that, this is gonna be awesome. Great. I can't wait to see all the hashtag Dungeon 23 stuff that comes out. But for me, I would love to celebrate you just, hey, I've had this thing sitting on my desk for 2 years and I managed to finally put the last 10 pages on it that I needed to, or whatever I need to do to get it done. Hashtag finish at 23. I'm just as happy to see that, you know. Folks have been talking about cards. Yeah, cards are good for dungeons. Yeah, because like Frederick's saying, you can rearrange them. If you put everything on a card, you rearrange it. I mean, the thing is that I'm not necessarily that you get in trouble, but you just the connections, but you have to just manage, right? Because not every room you're going to want to rearrange other rooms. Some rooms are important. Some rooms should be behind other rooms. That's kind of why I tried to organize things in kind of areas. I think I call them clusters, where you have a cluster of rooms all have a similar purpose, and you can think of those all matching together, and then you can do a lot of the design work just work. And I thought of clusters. I was really thinking about, well, what if I was looking at a residential building? I'm sitting in one right now. Right? If you think of a residential building, you can kind of break it down into some different parts of rooms. You have the you can do it by floor, really, but there's like the lobby. The lobby is a cluster. It's got the entranceway, you walk in, you can even have the outside, but it's got the courtyard, it's got the front doorway, it's got the vestibule, it has the actual lobby in it, it has the elevator bays. Then maybe also on the bottom floor, but not part of the lobby, you could say is the janitorial area, staff area, which has the workrooms, where all the meter stuff are, where the water is, where the gas, all the utilities come in and out, and storage areas. And then that's a cluster. And then you could have the garage, which might include the garage and bike storage and a couple of other entrances and exits. And then you can have those clusters. So you could go a far way with just saying, okay, what I'm building is a residential building. So instead of spelling out each room, I can just say kind of lobby, back area, garage, and kind of block things out that way. And then I can always come back later and say, okay, in the lobby, I have the elevator bays and this because I think you can kind of you can sort of you have that in your mind, you're going to have this image of what that lobby area is like. So instead of trying to break it out and say, oh, I got to do each individual room and map it together, I thought just do them in blocks. Start off with these bigger building blocks, and then come in later and say, oh, okay, now I can want to break out the lobby. And so that's kind of why I was trying to get around some of these because I feel like for myself, which is how I was patterning this, is where am I going to get? Where could I see myself getting all kinds of into like a time sink? And I felt like the mapping is going to be one, and kind of all these room connections. So I thought, well, what if I just said like, here's the first floor, or like you take say a hotel, lobby area. We've got reception, we've got a lounge, we've got this stuff. Okay, that's in that lobby cluster. Okay, now on the second, now we have the exercise rooms and pool, right? You could give that a name. You could call it recreation and exercise areas. In my mind, I know what that is. Okay, I might not have all the rooms exactly that I want, but I don't care right now. I just know that that's it. And then you could have conferences and offices, and that's another cluster. And then you could have different areas like that. That was kind of my thing. K5K says that they like that cluster structure. No, thank you. Sensibly breaks down a large dungeon to smaller chunks. Plus, who doesn't like more classes chances to say cluster? Yeah, I couldn't think of a better term. I was trying to think of one. I wanted to try to get away with dungeon specific terms, or terms that I know folks are doing these for sci-fi and maybe even modern day games. You really can apply to anything. So I tried to pick basically as genre in specific names, generic names as I could. Hey, Ian. We'll see how it goes. I mean, look, folks have found it useful, and even if only the folks who have found it useful already are the only ones who find it useful, then it was well worth me throwing together. And I don't know if I believe, just to throw this out there, the Affinity stuff is still on sale, everybody, because what really enabled me to put that out and work on it, especially over this kind of holiday weekend when I couldn't just subtract myself from the family and go sit at my computer and do it, was the ability to edit it and do things on my iPad and have it be basically one to one with the desktop. And the only way I could do that was through Affinity. Nothing else I have, no Adobe tools would enable me to do that, to be able to sit there and lay out stuff and type in stuff on my iPad and then come over to my desktop, load the same file, and it's all there. And the iPad display is exactly the same as my desktop display. No, I don't know. Some of the features are in different places. The interface isn't laid out the same, but in terms of the document, no loss of anything, no weird, oh, I could go this far, but I can't do that. It's like, no, I could basically do it all. So I was able to kind of edit it and add stuff, a few of the pages on my iPad, and then I could do that in the living room while folks are doing stuff on well, my daughter playing Just Dance on the TV on the Switch. I could have my iPad open and be adding a few things here and there, close it up. Then when I have a chance, come to the bedroom, fire up the computer and then do stuff. So another shout out to Affinity. I think it's going to be a very much a help to me in my finish it hashtag finish it 23 challenge. All right. Well, if folks don't have anything they want to cover, oh, something else that came up. This is probably not going to seem like, and I did a short. I put up a short on this, but why not? We're just covering. My mind is wandering, so we'll go with my mind wandering. But it was interesting. I saw this over the weekend. I think it was over the weekend or yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, I think it was yesterday on the OSR subreddit. I should maybe try to find it. Maybe I could try to. Actually, I should be able to find it. Hold on a second. Let me go to. Was it? Where was it? Where am I? It's me. Let's see. Yes. Okay. So there was this discussion. There was a question about in the Shadow of Tower Silver Axe. They're running the adventure. One of the dungeons slash caves has a stuck door at the entrance. What happens if no one can open it? The dungeon just becomes hard locked forever. Isn't this bad design? And so there were a couple of things. One, my first response was, hey, they leave, get some tools or extra help, and come back. And I make a point of saying, try not to look at things in a completely linear way. Basically, in a module like this, an old school module or old school style module, whatever, like this, is the idea is you're not hitting everything once, you're not going on a linear path. Oh my gosh, this door is stuck. Well, what do you do? What would you do in real life if you get to a door? We need to break into this place or we need to get in, the door is jammed. What do you do? Do you just you need to get in there or you want to bad enough? Oh, it's jammed. What do you do? Do you just well, I guess it's all over. Walk away, go find something else. No, you look around, get a tool, go back and get. Oh, we need crowbars, we need jackhammers, we need a small amount of explosives. I need to go get 5 day workers who are hanging out down the street, have them come. Like whatever you figure it out as a player. You figure it out and you come back, and then as the GM, you know that this is not, as someone else mentioned, it's not a forever lock. It's just it's locked right now, or it's stuck right now. So you come back, try something again, or you kind of keep trying and do whatever, and then what happens is that you do these things, and me as a GM are looking at all these things you're doing and figure out how that changes the scenario, if it does at all. If you come back, oh, the door was stuck, and it's a 2 in 6 chance of opening, and then the players say, great, we'll even get a tool, and I say, all right, what tool do you get? And they say a feather. They come back, I'm saying it's still a 2 in 6. Actually, it might be a 1 in 6 because if you're not putting any force into it, and you're just tickling it with a feather, probably not going to open. Common, right? Kind of commonsensical, sort of ruling. This is you're adjudicating here. Or they come back and say, all right, we come back, we got 3 guys, we bring in 3 farm boys from the cleaners village we give them massive, iron clubs or mallets and hammers, and we just send them to work and until it and they're not going to stop until it opens. Then I'm going to say, all right, well, some time will pass. I don't know how much time. Maybe I'll roll 1d6 or 1d4 or whatever, and then the door's going to open because 3 big corn-fed dudes with giant iron hammers are going to get that thing open unless it's shut in some way beyond just being stuck. It's opening. It's just a matter of when. Or they say 3 of us put our back into it. Maybe I'll say, great, now it's a 5 in 6 chance or whatever, right? That's kind of what you're supposed to do. But some folks got stuck, and I was looking through here, and they were getting stuck on the X and 6. So if you look in a basic expert, it says, okay, you have a 2 in 6 chance of a stuck door. And they're basically saying, well, I rolled 2 in 6 and I didn't get it. So what then? Well, you come back with an X. Yeah, but it's still a 2 in 6 chance. It's like what was being lost was that you were going from adjudicating a rule to just transmitting the rule. You were not, as the GM, you're not a pass through to the rule. You are an adjudicator. So you look at the rule as your base case. Hey, it's an ordinary door and somebody's doing an ordinary thing to it. Here's about the chances to succeed. 33% chance, 2 in 6. Okay. But when the circumstances change, okay, now we're adding some variable into it. Well, what if I'm bringing 3 people? We're all going to take a running start and jam into it. We don't care how much noise we're making. Because remember, the other thing with stuck doors is you're kind of trying to do it on the down low. You're not really trying to just hammer through it. But if you don't care, that changes that default scenario. And tweak, you were supposed to tweak whatever the rule is or the mechanic you're using to match your context, starting from the base case, 2 in 6, and then tweaking up or down. Like I said, hell, we're coming, we're gonna tickle the door open with feathers. All right, you got a 0 in 6 chance. It's just not working. Or you have a 1 in 100 chance, because who knows? If you roll 100, then I'll just say that the god of doors happened to be there and it's laughing and now something's happened. What, it's a mimic, whatever. But it's so super, super low odds. And you go there. But they were getting caught in that, okay, here's a mechanic. And maybe because the rules didn't specify do something with it, then they're like, well, that's the rule, 2 and 6. That's it. Done and done. But that's not really the intention. And something that comes up, I think, with OSR rules, even some of the newer ones, is there's not a lot of GM guidance about how to deal with that. They'll tell you in the absence of a rule, you got to make your own thing up. But you can look at it like each of these permutations is a little bit like the rules getting worn down, because the rules just for sort of your average case against average case. And once you start moving away from that, you should be adjusting your rules and just giving them some trouble. So keep that in mind. I did make a little short about it, but it had to be within a minute, so I couldn't really get too much into it. But use the things in the books, even if they don't say to, as your base case. Feel free to use advantage, disadvantage, plus or minus, whatever. It should match what is reasonably happening in your game. And if in your game you get to a point where they're just, we've got a backhoe. We went to the Barrier Peaks, came back with a sci-fi backhoe with laser cutters onto this stuck door. It's opening. I don't need to roll dice. I don't need it 5 and 6. No, it's open. The door has melted. Please enter. Whatever it is, you got to figure it out. But don't get hung up on this mechanic. And if the writing around the mechanic doesn't say, oh, if this then that, if this then that, you got to kind of come up with that yourself, because they just weren't writing rules that way back in the day, and they still don't to a large extent. Ian says that they're running this adventure, tonight, and they haven't run into whatever this stuck door is yet. Running in, excuse me, Worlds Without Number. So keep this in mind if they fail their exert check. Yeah, you just need to. The only thing, Ian, is if they run into this and they don't say which one of the dungeons slash caves, it's probably not one of the main ones, maybe a side one. And I mentioned this in my response: is don't let, if you feel your players are stuck linearly, because that's happened to my group too. You got to kind of shake them out of it. Hey, remember, you can go and come back. You can even try again, because time's going to go on. You're going to make noise. Random monsters might show up. All kinds of stuff might show up. So you can try it again. I like to give them the option of like a take 20 type thing. If you want to, I would do this way, where like for X and 6 type stuff is, I don't know. I don't remember Worlds Without Number or how their checks work. Just say, hey, you want to take an hour? Yeah, like there was take 20 was in 3 or 3.5 or both, where you could just take 20 meant you took an inordinate amount of time, but it's basically like you rolled a 20. You are giving up a whole bunch of time to say, I'm just opening it and I don't care. Or whatever it is I'm doing, I'm doing it. And I don't care about how much time it takes. So I'm gonna take all that time. So you would say, okay, an hour or whatever it is, you're gonna spend that whole hour working on this door and you're gonna get it open, because it's not magically stuck. There's no reason not to, it's just stuck. So yeah, you're gonna get it open if you put enough time and elbow grease into it. So that was kind of take 20. And I really like those. They listen, if you're trying to get in a hurry, you have orcs on your trail and you're trying to get in here and shut the door behind you, then every moment that you're banging against this door and not getting in is super important. So you can't take 20. But if it's just, oh, we're in front of the door, it's not opening, I'd be like, this is an option. You can work on it until you get it open, or you can come back with tools, or you can come, if you might have tools on you that you can use, or something else, help them work through to get out of that kind of linear, like, oh, if this thing blocks us, oh, we just turn around and go home. No. I mean, you could do that too. I mean, it's a sandbox. You can leave and then come back. But you gotta try to shake folks out of the being, if they are acting too linearly. K5K says this adventure has amazing cover art, but beyond that, they know nothing. Yeah, I mean, actually, if you go back in time on the channel, if you go into the channel archives, the K5K, I did a read through of it, and I also did an interview with the author Jacob Fleming. Um, it's a really fun module. Really does a nice job giving you kind of a micro setting, mini setting sandbox with sort of an overarching plot sort of running. They're not even a plot. I would just say, is it even a ticking clock? There's just a situation. There's kind of a scenario inside this sandbox, and I think it works pretty well. I mean, I haven't run it, so just reading it seems to work pretty well. It seems like people who have run and have had a good time running it. So Thumbs up. Ian says the take 10, take 20 was probably the best mechanic in 3.5. It was a really good. It really is. There are these weird. It's weird. It's always weird when they're moving from edition to edition. And you see the stuff that they've just left behind for whatever reason. I mean, some of it kind of makes sense as the focus of the game has changed. But yeah, take 10, take 20. Take 10 is another good one. It's basically average time, average effort. You're not trying to do it. You might the thief. Imagine you're a very, very highly skilled thief. You're presented with a lock. It doesn't seem like you looked at it, it seems okay. But if you roll the die, remember, D20, regardless if your proficiency, your skill level, your class level, whatever it is, you have a set 5% chance of super failure, and that's that one. Regardless of anything else, you've got a 5% chance that something, and depending on your game, could be ridiculously horrible happens when you roll that die. And not only that, it's flat. You can't do anything about it. You can't mitigate it. You just can't do anything about it, right? You have a 95% chance of not getting it, but you always have a 5% chance of at least failing, minimum at least failing, maximum failing. And in the case of a thief, oh, your lock pricks break. Oh, you get hit by your lock picks break and you get hit by a trap, or you start screaming, or whatever things have been engineered on critical misses, or however they're working in your game. You have all that stuff, 5% fail. What take 10 says is that, listen, you're an awesome thief. You don't need to roll a 20, or you don't think you do, to do this. You just need to do an average job. So we're just going to give you that average job. You can just take it. And nothing amazing is going to happen, but nothing horrible is going to happen. You're just going to kind of take your time and do a reasonable amount of work to get a reasonable result. And I think that's a great way, especially I think if you've got proficiency as a way to really highlight people who have training to say, hey, you can just take 10. You're not going to speed run it. This is not you doing it super fast or super quiet or super anything. It's just, you're just going to be careful enough to do a reasonable job. And it was a great mechanic. And I don't know why they got rid of it. I mean, I certainly am apt to bring it back anytime I can, because it is great and it helps mitigate the dice in general. And I think especially for people who are in an area which they are supposed to, and by their class or by their background or whatever, kind of skilled in, then I think allowing them to say, I'm just going to take 10, do it. And that gets around a lot of the stuff like, oh, if you're an expert lock pick, why are your lock picks always breaking? It's because you got a 5% chance you're going to break anytime you use them. Does that totally make sense? No. It makes more sense if it's going to happen in a situation in which you're pressed for time, or it's really difficult, something else where you're really on your game, not when it's like, oh, this is kind of easy. So using that take 10 means, oh, yeah, if it's something I think I can do just easy peasy, I can just do it. But if I need to do it fast, if I need to have something extraordinary that I need to roll, or if it requires more effort than that, like, yeah, I need a 16 or 17 to roll to beat this thing. My average isn't good enough, then I got to roll. Ian says they get way more mileage out of it than they ever expected. Like a dozen sessions, they aren't even in Labyrinth yet. Oh yeah, as far as Tower Silver X, yeah, it's good. It's good. I used to have it around my desk, but I think I put it away somewhere. Yeah, there's a nice whole area, and they've got some nice couple of kind of factions and cultures around there. It's in this kind of valley. It's really good, and there's a lot of resources out there for it now. You can find. I think someone has taken the because the maps in the book are kind of topographical with an hex overlay, but I think people have made actual hex maps. If you want to use a more conventional hex map with it, people have made those. Um, yeah, it's good. He's good. Sebastian says, totally agree with you on this one. Just don't ask to roll when it's not required. It's another way to do the same. Yes. Though I will say, Sebastian, that the one thing I like about the take 10 thing is that, again, it's player choice. Because you might be in a situation when you can give them options. Okay, you can do this fast, or you can do it slow. You can do it quietly. You can do it loudly. You can kind of do it in the middle. And then you can really just present it to the player. And the player can make that choice. That's kind of what I like about it. Is it Sure, I can always say not to roll. If it's so, this is a play school Duplo level lock, and you're an expert lock pick. Yeah, I'm probably not. I'm just gonna say, yeah, you open it. But this is a way where you really put it in the player's hands, because there might be advantages to doing it well, quickly, quietly, expertly, and disadvantages to being sloppy. So you can give them like, here's what happens if you're sloppy. Here's what happens if it's just adequate, and here's what happens if it's really good. Really good, maybe you're able to open the lock, do stuff, and leave the lock completely intact without any scratches or anything, so no one knows you picked that lock, or you're able to do something else, or there's a trap in there, whatever it is. Boom. You're not going to get that. If you do it adequately, yeah, you're going to open it. There's going to be some signs of your trickery if anyone looks, kind of thing. So you can really give them opportunities to make choices. But sure, I mean, if it's really if you look at this, boy, this is totally beneath them, then yeah, of course, never make them roll. If there's no choices to be had, there's no reason to roll. In this case, what I'm saying was take 10 is you kind of have choices, but you still get to put it onto the player to choose. And in their choosing, they can decide whether they want to mitigate the dice or roll and take their chances that a one doesn't show up. But that was interesting with the this Tower Silver Axe thing because it does kind of speak to, and I think this is one of those things I think comes up more and more, or not comes up more and more, but it's something that I think as folks continue to discover the OSR coming from rule systems. And I'm not saying like, oh, they're coming from fifth edition. They might be coming from other things, but other systems that have more, not only a lot more rules, but more kind of concrete procedures of how to work around the rules, which is something that I think fifth edition probably does pretty well, right? You have advantage and disadvantage, and that's kind of knocked into you. Oh, you have something, you have advantage. You have this, have disadvantage. They kind of give you all these do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that, do that. Whereas you're gonna find something in basic expert where they're just gonna say, oh, hey, use your best judgment, use D100, use D X and six, use whatever. It's all yours, it's all good. Which when you're I think you're more experienced, you're like, "Yeah, this is great. I can use whichever mechanic, I want, whichever dice hit my fancy, however I wanna do it." But if you're newer, it's just kinda like, "This doesn't help me at all." Like, I can do whatever I want. I don't wanna know whatever I want. I wanna know what you want me to do. How am I supposed to do this? And there isn't a lot of that. So, I thought that was interesting. Since I'm here, I might as well go to not me, where's hold on, let me go back here and then into the OSR. We can see what's going on. Oh yeah, this was kind of cool. I saw this, I upvoted it. Someone found, I guess there was some kind of short-lived snake cult. Let me and there's I think this is from the second century. Just cool. I like the fact that the snake has hair and kind of nice hair. I wish I had that snake's hair. I'll trade hair with that snake anytime. Let's see. 23 dungeon features for Dungeon 23. I'm saying, it's almost more I almost wonder about the, Dungeon 23 that they're gonna be hopefully it'll be good for having people create tools. I think a lot of people, I mean, myself included, creating these kind of tools for people to help them with their Dungeon 23 might be a little hidden thing of might be one of the hidden things that are gonna get the most value after the thing is over is not actually the dungeons that are made because of it, but all the tools that come out because of it. The K5 cases, they quite like rules like DM rulings games, less stress on everyone, that it has to all be right, it lets people make fun instead. Yeah, I don't disagree at all. It's just but we have to acknowledge the K5K and Sebastian that it is more pressure on the GM. There's no question there is more of looking at you, and you having to do that. So when you're comfortable, it's fine because you get the latitude to do things that you want. You don't there's not as much of the rules lawyering because there's not that many rules to lawyer. And, often I'm not doing it I'm not making these rulings usually to at the detriment of the PCs anyway. Like we had a game night um last week and there at one point they were asking, I don't know if I made a video on this, maybe I haven't, maybe I have. I should, but it came up where they were we went on on a kind of a drink beverage break. And this is iced oolong tea for the working man. We took a beverage break, and when I came back, I threw my headset on, and I could hear them talking to each other about the poison. And I there was this poison effect from the yellow, or yeah, I guess poison. Yeah, it is technically, I guess it's poison from the yellow mold. They weren't familiar with yellow mold itself, but the idea of the poison. And the one player who was more of a fifth edition player was talking to the other player who was just new. And there was a lot of like, well, I'm not sure because in kind of fifth edition, the way poisons work is you just take some damage and you're kind of, or something happens and you're done with it. And this clearly had not happened in this game. This poison had done lots of worse things, And and there was a little bit of not necessarily confusion about it, but they were just kind of wondering. So when I came on, I said, "Hey, I heard you guys were talking about poisons, so let's talk about poisons." And this is when I said, "All right, basic expert, well, if you're playing just vanilla by the book, poison just kills you. By the book, yellow mold, whatever, you guys, hey, 4 rounds, you're dead. 4 rounds, you're walking dead, then you just kill over and die. That's how it works." And I explained how what I had done was to give more of a fighting chance because I like this idea of it takes a certain amount of rounds to work. But by the book, if you just play by the book, which kind of goes through to what we were talking before about the X and six and stuck doors and stuff, is you just go by the book. It's like you have 4 rounds, but what can you do? You can't do anything. I mean, unless you have the spell or I have an anti venom or anti poison whatever antidote in my pocket. It's just you're just walking dead for 4 rounds. That's it. And there's only a couple things you might be able to do if you don't have those things, which they don't. Then by the book, there's just nothing you can do. It's just, oh, you're dead in 4 rounds. So use these 4 rounds to make a monologue saying goodbye to this cruel world. So you're gone. So I mentioned how I like to give them a chance. I like to put it in a way that to give them a fighting chance because one, it's just more fun. It just makes it much more epic situation. You get just something poisons you, just keel over and die. It's what's the fun in that? I want to wring it out. I want to stretch it out. I want some suffering. I want the party to be agonized by whether to do what they were doing or to try to save the player, but maybe saving that player character requires giving up something else. Like all these great tensions come up. Like that's what I want. These are the big moments in the game, not just you take 5 feet, 5 steps and keel over. But the rules don't tell you that. The rules just say four rounds, then you die. But I had to walk them through it because I said, look, okay, you're coming from fifth edition. Things work totally differently in this regard. Let me let me tell you what the by the book is. And let me tell you how I'm doing it. Um, so just I guess in all stuff is just have those conversations, but it puts pressure on me as the GM because if you're not comfortable doing it or you're just learning how to do it, it can be really hard when everyone's kind of looking at you and you don't have something. I think it's one thing I think that's not discussed enough or is that having a big rule book, whether it's first edition AD&D, the DMG, or whether it's fifth edition, whatever, is it's comforting to the GM because the GM, I know there's all the rules lawyer and things that can make it annoying, but there's for the GM just say like, here it is in the book. I actually had where is it? Right. Hope I don't knock a whole bunch of stuff over. It's right down here. Here it is. I can just go and say, you know what? Page 163, poisons. You are dead in 4 rounds. I killed you. That's it. It killed you in 4 rounds. Done and done. Right? Easy. Go to the book. The book tells you. That's it. It's comforting as a GM because it's the same way that when you're open about your roles or you're doing stuff that you feel like, oh, the burden's lifted off of me. Because it's not me, it's rule page 164 in the book. But if you're not on the book or the book doesn't have that stuff, you're dealing with BX, which is just a sliver of that book, and it just says do whatever, then it can be harder because now it is you. There's no book you can go to and say, oh, the DMG told me to. No, Gary Gygax told me to. No, you told you to. Which is why I also think it helps to just walk through things. So if there's a situation, you got a 20-foot chasm and they need to jump across or do whatever, and they're kind of come up with it. I'll instead of just giving a flat like, oh, just make this roll, yes or no, I'll say like, well, what do you think the odds are of that? What are we looking at here? 20 feet? Let's Google 20 feet jumps. Okay, that's kind of a Olympic. Maybe it's even I don't even know what the Olympic long jump records are. Maybe that's even more than that. And the stakes are a lot higher because you can't just fall back into sand. You're falling back into a pit. So you go, okay, let's come up with a number. Is this reasonable? And I find that most people you play with, they're not going to tell you to your face, "Oh, I think it's a 99 out of 100 chance." Come on, dude. Right? Come on. So you can come up with it. And then you get to that same spot where like, okay, we've kind of agreed on that. Yeah, 15% chance seems about right. If you take off all your gear, if you take off your shoes, you pray to the god of jumping and you put beans between your toes, jumping beans between your toes, and you do all this stuff, and you go, okay, we'll get you up to a 15% chance you're gonna make that jump. Everyone agrees, great, now do it. And then of course also, but if you miss that jump, you're falling in the abyss, and maybe I'll give you some kind of roll to see if you can grab onto the ledge or if there's something below you, whatever. But that's where we're at. So I agree ultimately that once you're comfortable in the system, making these things yourself, these judgments yourself, makes the game flow a lot faster because you can just riff and go. But getting to that part can be difficult. And I think the lack of, and I think people have mentioned this before for different reasons, there is not a lot of great GM guidance in a lot of the OSR, NSR rule books. There just isn't. They it's just not a big it's not a big focus. I think a lot of it is because the books kind of assume you've read other books. I think they do. I think they just kind of assume that, well, you're coming to this book, you probably have read these other books, and so you kind of know what you're doing already, and not you're coming from something totally different. And usually, if they even if they think you're coming from something totally different, they kind of I think they kind of feel like not from a GM advice perspective, but a mechanical perspective. So that's where they spend their time is on the let's get all the mechanical perspectives done. Let's see. What did I miss anything in the chat? Sebastian says new rules should bring fun with them. When the fun is gone, no worry, get rid of the rule for now and come back to it if it's fun again, like the momentum rule from Dominion. I don't know the momentum rule for Dominion. I'll have to look at that. Caverna says give them 4 rounds and say goodbye is good. Or a cleric could have cure poison. They could. They could. But I like to give them an option. I always because it's those things in the movies in Fellowship of the Ring. Hey, Aragorn, or Aragorn says to Sam, Athelas, go get it. Right? That's not on his character sheet. Even as a ranger, there's nothing there that says, oh, I mean, I suppose depending on what version of the ranger you're playing, that Athelas can help slow Morgul blade poison. But in terms of the game, I'll give it to you. Send Samwise out for Athelas. Send it out. I'm there with you. If you can do that and succeed, and there's dice and things and whatever. So it's not even a foregone conclusion just because you send the guy out for Athelas, he's gonna find it, come back, whatever. But I'm willing to give them some play. And I don't hate to use agency, but it does give them some agency in the situation. And I think it just plays up the moment. When my players were sitting there and trying to get this guy warmed up because the yellow mold was basically sucking away all his heat and killing him, that was a lot of fun, and it took up most of the game. But nobody thought it was a waste of time because they really felt like they were impacting the situation, which they were. It wasn't some kind of false sense of impact. They were doing that, and it ultimately, did help sort of save their lives for a bit. All right. Got anything else here going on? And as usual, feel free in the chat. It's already been 50 minutes. So somehow I'll be able to talk my way through a stream. It's almost already over. Let's see. This might be interesting. I know I upvoted it, but I don't know if I actually read much about it. Hoping to run my first OSC game. What's your one favorite hack or house rule that significantly improves BX? Oh, yeah, I remember. I upvoted this guy. Or Rover Buff, Holmesian scroll scribing, meaning scroll crafting rules as described in Holmes Basic, allows magical classes to create scrolls from level 1 for 100 gold pieces and 1 week of time per spell level. I agree. I think it's pretty good. All right, so let's see. So Sebastian is sharing the momentum rule. Start at 7, which is a roll on a d20. Then every time you succeed or the group succeeds, the group momentum goes up 1. You fail, it goes down. Since players tend to win more than lose at a critical moment, you take that momentum, drop it back down to 7, but you make no roll. By taking the momentum, so you just use the momentum instead of the roll, Sebastian. So basically, if you end up with an 18, you can just take that 18 and use it. I mean, that's cool. That's cool. I'm down with that. I haven't found that to be a big problem though. Maybe because my players aren't rolling a ton of dice. Except, well, they could have used. They'd had some momentum. They could have used that in that episode with the yellow mold because that time they were rolling a bunch. But that's all we were doing was they were trying to come up with new ways to combat the mold poisoning, and then there were saves to see if they stabilized or not. So in that case, there were some extra rolls. But in a normal session, we just roll. It's pretty limited. But I don't mind that. I think for me, I'm only speaking for me. I definitely make sure I'm tracking that from session to session. Otherwise it'd be something like we'd all forget what momentum we had. Let's see. If there's anything interesting in this. So I like the homing and scroll scribing rules. That's good. Some folks have added in some more survivability, adding in using the D6 skill check system instead of percentages. So instead of thieves getting those things going up in percentages, you usually use X and 6. Von Economo says they hate class weapon restrictions. Civil alternatives allow players to use any weapon, but only do as much damage as their class hit die. Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind that. Screws over thieves, though. I don't care about that. Thieves, you can have the thieves get like a fighter hit die if they backstab, if you want to have them backstab. Thieves shouldn't be angling for combat anyways. You could give them something like a sniper slash backstab. If they surprise their missile attack on somebody who survives missile or whatever melee attack, can use a D8 if whatever your fighter is using D8. Let's see. Anything else good? Someone likes the slow poison rules. Yep, I'm down with slow poison rules. Red Wagner rolls monster morale checks before initiative. And then, so what's the advantage? If you rolled your morale checks before initiative, then okay, so they roll the morale checks before they've rolled initiative, and then they announce that they can announce to the players if the monsters are staying to fight or start to run or surrender. If they're running, players have two standard options: focus on attack, going for a parting shot, which they'll get a +2 if they win initiative, or focus on chasing, which then triggers evasion rules, but they generally catch them if they're faster. Pretty close to rules as written as they understand it, but they think it helps them and their players imagine the scene and make informed decisions. They are about to run. What do you do? I lunge forward with my sword, hoping to finish them off. Um, yeah, I think particularly if you're going to do, I think that's fine. Though I kind of like the unknowns. I have to say, I kind of like the unknowns. I kind of like when the party isn't sure of what to do and they have to take a gamble because something I think you can get too caught up in is all your decision spaces have to be hyper informed. It's like there's no surprises kind of left. And I understand part of that, but the other part is no, I want you to have to make a choice and you're taking a risk. And the risk is that you guessed wrong, that you go to do something and then they do something else or whatever. So I like to leave in some of those gaps for, so I don't think I would use that, but I can see how it could help people. And if it helps anybody, then that's great. Everyone loves critical hits. I'm not that high on critical hits. I don't know. I do like the natural 20s max damage. That's kind of how I run it. Sebastian says they'd love to see a rule that makes potions work like drugs. They have symbiotic components and antagonistic components. So one potion can make another potion go awfully wrong if you don't take it into account what it contains. I mean, those rules are, all that stuff is amazing and can be really interesting. It just takes up space. It takes up space in books. It takes up space in your brain. You just have to manage all of it. If you could, I think that's always the challenge, at least for me. There's always the challenge of, I would love to have all these different features. I've said this many, many times before. I love the chainmail, different weapons versus different armors matrix. I love it. If I could figure out a way to do it, and I don't use like Roll20, I don't use any VTTs, so I don't know if there's any shortcuts they have. I don't have access to. So but I haven't figured out a way to do it without just too much slowdown, where I'm constantly checking what the weapon armor thing is, and I can't do it. I can't do it fast enough or seamless enough. So, it's the management part. Sebastian says it only takes up space in their Excel sheet. And yeah, there is that. But then, how much, as long as if you can keep Sebastian, if you can reference all that stuff and all these kind of interactions between, as you call it, the symbiotic components and antagonistic components, hey, I think that's great. And all this stuff adds a lot more flavor and depth once you figure it out. Cause I can see somebody who, hey, you need this much of this ingredient, this much of this ingredient, and it makes a drug to like even something like morphine or something, right? If you put in this much of the drug and it's going to make you sleepy. If you put in too much, it kills you. and you could do that with combinations of things. And that stuff's all great, but you got to track it. And I think if you can do that and do it in a way that's not slowing everything down, then I think it's awesome because then yeah, that adds more depth to the players. Oh, I really want to kill this person, but I need to do it in a way that I'm not going to get caught for. But what if I replace their healing potion with this other potion? It's almost the same, only it's too much of ingredient B, so it's going to cause them to go into a coma as opposed to just having them have a nice nap and whatever. But I can kind of do that because I understand these different things and then I can, because I'm just playing around with the ingredients, I don't really have to mask it as much. I can kind of do this stuff. It's cool. But as a table, can we get into that nitty-gritty without it just turning into something else? That's always my fear. But yeah, in principle, I love all that stuff. Sebastian says, "You don't want the game to look too much like work. It has to be taken care of in the background." Yes, absolutely. So I'm always cognizant of that because if we had all these, that's what I would really love is more tools, and maybe there are tools in terms of like bots because I'm not on a BTT bots for Discord or other kind of web tools, and maybe I could figure out ways in Excel to do that where I could roll these calculations or have it rolled in so when my players are rolling there to hits and things, I could automatically. I mean, there's just some maybe you probably just need a VTT for it. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff I would love to do. But I just look at it and go, well, I'm always constantly trying to weigh the choice of is the juice worth the squeeze? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And there's stuff that I really love, but I also really think can't do it. Not in this game, not in some other game that's more in something like Pendragon, I don't know if they do something like that, but I could totally see it because there's a lot more of an emphasis and just the pace and everything is just kind of slower and more methodical in that way. And D&D, for me at least, what I play, it's not. So, got to figure it out. All right, I guess I'm done with that. Anything else going on? We're almost at the top of the hour. K5K says Excel handles all their random encounters. Click encounter, love their Excel. Yeah, I need to kind of mess around with Excel more again. There's stuff like perchance and there's other tools that I think can work. I just tend to go by the usually I'm kind of lazy and I just use the default tables for my encounters. I should probably leverage something like Excel to do things in a better way. But I haven't done any programming in Excel in forever. So I'd have to kind of relearn everything about how to do kind of forms and all that stuff, those kind of front end bits, and then have it looking at the different tables. I feel like that's why I want to look at something like Chat GPT or something to see if I could, or not even that, but just some of those AIs where I could train it on a bunch of encounters and then hopefully get it to spit out good encounters for me to click. Basically, a different sort of tool to do the same sort of thing. Yeah, yeah, I know Excel has some of the sort of nicer. I just call it. I mean, I think of them as front ends, but where you can sort of have a tab or a sheet kind of become like a fillable out form that has a nice interface, but then references tables behind it. And yeah, I don't know that the like Google Sheets or whatever, I don't, or in other things like I don't think they do them as well. Uh, but it is cool. It is cool. Let's see. Is there anything else? I'm really just stunned that we got through a whole hour already. I thought it would be more of a struggle. Let's see. There's got to be some other tools too, aren't there? I mean, what's that other thing with tables I have? It's called, hold on. I think I have it on my desktop. I've messed around with it only the slightest amount. Um, hold on. Hold on. Is it called? Let's see. Oh, what is it called? It's still here. Da, da, da. No, no, no. I can't remember what it's called, but there is some kind of tool for creating tables. Now I can't remember what it is. It is Inspiration Pad Pro. Has anyone used Inspiration Pad Pro? Inspiration Pad Pro? Has anyone? Has anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? I'll pull it up really quick. This is the last thing. I was imagining I would do something um just with me. Hold on a minute. Let me see. But I didn't have it up before, so I don't know if I can get to it without. I don't think it's gonna let me. Hold on a minute. Let me go to. There's me. Let me see. Hold on a second. All right. Let's see. Oh no. Yeah. Window. No. Let's see. Uh, this. Oh wait, there it is. Hold on a minute. I think I might be able to get this. Yes. Okay. We'll just do this for a couple minutes. Ooh, look at that. All right. So this is Inspiration Pad Pro. I will do a video on this, so don't take this as the first and last word on this. And I haven't done very much about it. It's basically a just a way a front end for basically creating tables of things. Let me see if I can get into one of these. These are ones that I didn't do. I think I downloaded them from somewhere, but one called Adventure Hooks. I have one called NPC on the Street. These are not mine. It's Inspiration Pad Pro 3. I'll write that in the chat. Inspiration Pad Pro 3. And you can create all kinds of these orc formal introduction, orc hunting party, orc raiding party, minions. These other ones, or maybe these are the default ones. I loaded a bunch of stuff in here. Tavern songs, traps, wild animal encounters. Let me see if I can, what's the console do? The console, okay, let's see if I can get into one of these so we can see what it looks like. Inns, guild generator, mafiosi, ninja weapons of murder, all kinds of stuff. So let's villages, virtues and vices. Let me go to back to Adventure Hooks or NPC on the street. Cool. Go to edit table. And basically it's got some programming stuff in here. It allows you to, kind of similar to what the Abulafia, I forget the name of the thing was doing, where you can import a bunch of different tables and then nest them to come up with a final table. You're saying basically, all right, all these tables, and so you can come up with a table for you're basically similar to what, like I said, Abulafi and other things. You're kind of creating little tables of things, very specific things, colors, blah 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 blah, types of gems, blah blah blah. And then the magic is that you can create a table that then takes those two tables or more and then puts them together. Suddenly you have yellow rubies, green diamonds, orange opals, that kind of thing. And then of course you can have more. Well, now I need shapes, I need settings, I need whatever. And then and you can create all these things, and then you just, once you have all these tables like Excel, right, you're putting in work, you're making all these individual tables, but then you can reference them all together and then make these tables to make these sort of merge tables, if you will, but then give you something like this, where you get a name, you get a race, you think all this stuff, all these things were all separate tables. This is not a table, all these, and then you get all this stuff, and so you're able to put it together. And of course, you're able to build on all your work. So once you've done your table of colors, you can reference it a million times. You just had to build it once. Once you've made your reference of this other thing, and then you can add on to it as you come up with new stuff. Chat GPT, I've tried, and it is amazing. But I haven't tried it with like OSR stuff. I feel like it's better with 5th edition type stuff because that's just, I think, what it's trained more on is obviously stuff on the now. I haven't really tried too much. I need to mess around more with it. The other thing with Chat GPT is I want to know what's going to happen after whatever the beta runs out. Whatever they do with it, because right now it's like, oh, it's free, it's in beta, and so, but I want to know, well, what happens after beta? I don't want to have done a bunch of stuff with it or set up some things and like, yeah, I add it into my workflow, and then it comes out of beta and it's like, oh, sorry, now it's $1,000 an hour. So like, I don't know. I don't know. Whatever they're gonna do with it. I don't know. But I think I could easily see using it with kind of other AI models that I could train myself and do to train, create, take some stuff from this, train some AI models, put them together, and have more control of it because you can kind of, you can sort of own as much as anything, kind of the stuff you're doing yourself. You can run it on your own PC, kind of thing like that. But yeah, it's a really powerful. I mean, ChatGPT is a really powerful tool. But even these kind of old school, just programming, just some nice old randomization and a bunch of tables can help a lot. So this is I don't know if it's free or if it's I don't think it's very expensive if you have to pay for it. I'm not even sure you have to pay for it, but it's kind of what people were doing. I mean, think if people are still developing stuff for it. I don't know where it is in its life cycle, but really handy tool. If you don't mind throwing together some tables in the background, you can really go. And of course, you can, like I said, I imported a whole bunch of these things, and they have some here you can do, and that's just names here by earth culture, by species, and other stuff. So you can rattle off those and treasures. So you can go do that. I should probably lean into this more. Look at that. Rare silver axe. We were just talking about silver axe. Sebastian says they asked, I guess, Chat GPT to generate an event that is negative toward the environment and about extreme extravagance, and they generated a noble hunting dinner party that ended with hunting non-local exotic animals. That's pretty interesting. There's no question come up with great stuff. I just want to know. I just want to know a little bit more about what's going to happen with it before I start to put a bunch of time into it. But in terms of something just to play around with, super, super interesting. All right, folks. Well, hey, I appreciate you hanging out for this mystery stream. It was fun. Sorry, I wasn't more on the ball with topics. Hopefully, I'll come up with something more structured for tomorrow. But this was a bunch of fun. Hope everyone's having an amazing holiday season so far. Hanging in there in the cold and the wet and the wind and the rain and the snow, depending on where you live. Have a great rest of your day, night. Whenever you end up watching or listening to this, I appreciate you, everybody, and everything that you do. Game on, and I will talk to you later. Bye now.